As a member of Fight Media and a resident of Los Angeles County, I was there at Crawford versus Madrimov. What's up, it's Ant Walker here with Ringside Intel, and let's talk about what the happened this weekend at Terence Crawford versus Israil Madrimov. So I was credentialed media for Saturday's fight between Terence Crawford and Israil Madrimov, a stat card that represented Riyadh Season's first entry into the United States market. So in this series, I like to peel the onion back just a little bit so you can get an idea of what things are like with boots on the ground, covering some of these events. And of course, if you want to hear some stories about just coverage in general, while I'm not necessarily at an event, but still working, would love to do that as well. So to start, let's just get this out the way. And I've said this many times on Scrap Report. I've said this on my old podcast, years back and stuff, and it still holds true today. Typically, covering a boxing match is far more disorganized than covering mixed martial arts, especially if you're talking about the UFC. And I think Bellator is very good about this as well. You typically know what's going on. Everything is laid out for you. It's just simply you show up and you do your job. And that's kind of all I want out of working an event. I just want to be able to come in, do the job that I'm paid to do, and provide as much useful content as possible. So with that being said, this is one of those things where it sort of reveals from a media standpoint the big problem with fights of this caliber. When you have fights this caliber that attract a lot of celebrity attention, that attract a lot of VIPs and become these sort of circuses for attention, you find that media a lot of times gets pushed out the way to make room for these VIPs and entourages and whatnot. And a lot of the basic logistics that go into making sure that media can just go there and do their job is left by the wayside. For instance, we're getting conflicting emails about times for some of the pre-fight events. Seemingly on a whim, you'd get an email that would have different times of when an event was supposed to begin and check-in times, and you get there and it's still not running. It was a nightmare on that end. I almost come to expect it to a certain point. But fight day is when it really got crazy. Unless you're part of a prestige outlet, such as an ESPN or USA Today, where just by the name of that organization, you're gonna have a whole lot of eyeballs clicking articles and watching videos, everyone else just gets kind of pushed to the wayside. So the morning of the fight, I still didn't know exactly what the situation was as far as credentialing was concerned. I can't speak for anyone else, but I know I was waiting for an email that was going to let me know what to do, where to pick up credentials, whatnot. I'm also told that it's possible that I will not actually be given a media space where I'd have a workstation, be able to plug in my laptop, be able to edit while I'm watching, that I would just have a seat in the arena, which meant I was pretty much along with fans, which also meant no laptop, no backpack, no equipment. I essentially would just be there with my phone and maybe could pick up whatever I could pick up. Very thankful to the person who I spoke with at Matchroom, who kind of let me know a little bit ahead of time of these emails what the situation was and what I could expect. So I knew at that moment, okay, I can't bring my laptop. I can't bring any equipment. It's essentially just going to be me with my phone. Maybe I can get what I can get, but hey, at least maybe I can get some good stuff at the press conference I can upload. Then I'm told, no, I will not have access to the post-fight press conference, so I'm really just gonna be a fan there. Even then, hey, I could try to pull something out of this. That ended up not working too well. By the time I got my ticket via email, the event had already been going on for about 2 hours. And granted, it wasn't the pay-per-view portion, but still, if I'm there to work and cover fights, I wanna be there for all the fights. So by the time I make it to the arena, parking is a mess. I mean, this is not exactly the easiest area to navigate in Los Angeles anyway. So with a big event, it makes things nearly impossible. All these things that aren't necessarily the fault of Riyadh Season or Matchroom or the PR company Magnum Media. But if I get the ticket after the fight has already begun, and as we're approaching when the pay-per-view is supposed to begin, yes, there are going to be a lot of logistical problems as far as just getting in, sitting down, and beginning whatever sort of work I could do from the building. To the point where it just got to be such a mess. I just had to go home. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was just easier to go home, and hopefully I could just watch things on TV and actually give an honest analysis of what I saw. That's what I'm gonna give for you guys. I'm gonna give an assessment of that main event, and we'll go from there. On a personal note, Eminem did give sort of a mini concert before Terence Crawford and Madrimov walked out to the ring. That would have been cool to see. I know Eminem gets a lot of flack from the hip hop community online, but we can't deny that the Eminem Show is a classic album. So if you agree, disagree, whatever, we'll talk. So first off, let's just start by talking about how great Terence Crawford looked last night. So this was Terence Crawford's first fight at 154 pounds. And he certainly looked the part. And he did a great job of handling a bigger opponent who wasn't just there to bully and throw his weight around, which I'm kind of surprised Madrimov didn't take more of that approach, because that just seems like the natural thing to do against a smaller guy. But he was very nimble, a lot of feint steps. So Madrimov had a lot more finesse to his game plan than I think many of us anticipated, which noticeably threw Crawford off at spots, in my opinion. That being said, Crawford got off some very nice combinations. He was able to damage Madrimov, as you saw his face at the end of the fight. But I do think we've seen the limit of where Terence Crawford can go as far as his trips up the scale. I mean, this is the 4th division that he's been able to collect the belt at. And quite honestly, I don't anticipate a 5th or a 6th to add to his collection. Of course, everyone is talking about the potential of Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. That's a fight that just would make huge amounts of money. That would be a massive box office draw and would essentially amount to this huge media circus that I was talking about before. But from a competitive standpoint, I just don't like it. If Crawford goes up to 168, that means his work rate is going to slow. That means the punches coming his way are going to be far more damaging. And it likely means his punches won't mean as much. It's very possible that someone like a Canelo Alvarez will be able to just walk through and walk him down and sort of do what they want to do, much like Dimitri Bivol did to him when Canelo tried to get a second title at 175. In my opinion, Terence Crawford is still the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. But if he beats Canelo, we're going to be talking about a diminished version of Canelo, much like Canelo's win over Sergey Kovalev for his title at light heavyweight. Now, if this fight were to take place at 160, that's far more likely to be a possibility. Problem is, Canelo hasn't fought at 160 since 2019 when he beat Danny Jacobs. Considering that he will be the A-side in this, I don't think he moves back down to 160 for the first time in 5 years. Maybe Riyadh Season can pony up enough money to make that idea more attractive, but I just don't see that happening, especially with Canelo having sort of his pick of people at weights that are far more comfortable for him to make. So what do you think? What was your assessment of Terence Crawford's performance? How did you score the fight? What do you think should be next for Bud? And should Canelo be on his to-do list still? Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend and tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay locked into Ringside Intel. I'm Ant Walker. Peace.